Elena Vasquez had always been told she asked too many questions. Growing up on Earth's Luna colony, she drove her teachers crazy with endless curiosity about how things worked. Why did ships need such massive fuel tanks? Why couldn't they go faster? Why did everyone accept that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy? Now, 32 years old and standing on the bridge of humanity's newest starship, she still asked those same questions. The difference was, this time, someone had actually found the answers. The used Defiance looked ordinary from the outside. Nothing fancy or intimidating about it. When the Galactic Empire's inspection team had visited Earth's shipyard 6 months earlier, they'd barely glanced at it. The lead inspector, a tall alien with purple skin and 4 arms, had simply marked it down as standard human construction and moved on to more important things. Typical human ship, he'd muttered to his assistant. Slow, weak, probably breaks down every few months. These people still use chemical rockets for basic transport. What the inspector didn't know was that Dr. James Chun had been working in secret labs deep beneath the Pacific Ocean for the past 8 years. While the galaxy saw humans as the new kids who barely knew how to tie their own shoes, Chun was busy rewriting the laws of physics. Elena remembered the first time she'd seen Chun's quantum fold drive. It was smaller than her coffee maker back home, but it could bend space itself. The old Elena would have asked 100 questions about how it worked. The new Elena just smiled and said, "When do we test it?" The test flights had been incredible. The Defiance could travel distances that should have taken months in just a few hours. They could generate energy shields that made their ship practically invisible to enemy sensors. Most amazing of all, they could create protective fields strong enough to move entire space stations, but they'd kept it all secret. Earth's leaders had learned an important lesson from history. When you're the small guy in a big galaxy, you don't show your best cards until you absolutely have to. That moment came on a Tuesday morning when Elena was enjoying her breakfast and reading reports from the outer colonies. The communication system suddenly came alive with an emergency signal. "This is Admiral Zixthara of the Imperial Fifth Fleet," the voice crackled through the speakers. Even through the static, Elena could hear the desperation. "We are under attack by coalition forces near the Veil Nebula. Our ships are disabled. Life support is failing. Any vessel receiving this message, please respond." Elena's communication officer, a young man named Tony Rodriguez, looked up from his station. "Commander, that's deep in the neutral zone. It would take any Empire ship at least 6 hours to reach them." "How long would it take us?" Elena asked. Tony checked his calculations twice before answering. "With the quantum fold drive?" 18 minutes. Elena stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. She could see Earth in the distance, blue and beautiful and peaceful. Her homeworld had been at peace for decades now. No major wars, no big conflicts. Just a quiet planet full of people who like to tinker with machines and ask difficult questions. But out there in the darkness, people were dying. It didn't matter that they were Empire soldiers who probably looked down on humans. It didn't matter that helping them might reveal Earth's biggest secret. What mattered was that they needed help, and the Defiance could provide it. "Set course for the Veil Nebula," Elena ordered. "Maximum fold speed." "Commander," Tony said quietly, "once we do this, there's no going back." "The whole galaxy will know what we can do," Elena nodded. She'd been thinking the same thing. For 30 years, humans had been the galaxy's underdogs. They were the species everyone felt sorry for. Poor humans with their slow ships and primitive technology. Poor humans who were just happy to be allowed into the galactic community at all. But Elena had never liked being underestimated. And today, the galaxy was about to learn that humans were full of surprises. The Defiance's engines hummed to life with a sound unlike anything in the known galaxy. Instead of the loud roar of traditional space drives, the quantum fold system was almost silent. Space itself began to bend around the ship. Creating a bubble of altered reality, Elena watched the stars stretch and blur as they entered fold space. In the old days, this journey would have taken days, maybe weeks. Other species would have arrived to find nothing but debris and empty space. But humans had always been good at arriving late to the party and still managing to save the day. Doctor Chion's voice came through the internal communication system from the engine room. Commander, all systems are running perfectly. The Empire ships won't know what hit them. Let's just hope we're not too late, Elena replied. As the Defiance raced through folded space toward the battle zone, Elena thought about her grandmother's stories. The old woman used to tell tales about Earth's early space program, when humans first left their home planet with nothing but chemical rockets and big dreams. Everyone said they'd never make it to the stars. Everyone said they were too weak, too slow, too primitive. Everyone had been wrong then. 2. The Defiance dropped out of fold space near the Veil Nebula, and Elena's jaw nearly dropped. 7 massive Empire dreadnoughts hung dead in space, their hulls scarred from weapons fire. Each ship was easily 10 times larger than the Defiance. These were the pride of the Imperial fleet, vessels that could destroy entire planets, and they were completely helpless. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the UES Defiance, she broadcast on all frequencies. We received your distress call. Prepare to be rescued. The response came immediately. Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Zixara. You appear to be a human ship. I appreciate your courage, but you should retreat immediately. This is beyond your capabilities. Elena smiled. She'd heard that tone before, polite but dismissive, kind but condescending. The voice of someone who thought they were talking to a child who didn't understand how dangerous the adult world could be. Admiral, Elena replied, I think you're going to be surprised by what humans are capable of these days. She gave Tony a nod, and he activated the quantum field manipulators. The space around the Defiance began to shimmer as massive amounts of energy built up around the small human ship. On the Empire vessels, alarms started going off as their sensors registered power readings they'd never seen before. Elena opened a channel to Dr. Chun in the engine room. Doctor, how much power can we generate? Commander, Chun's excited voice came back. We're running at about 5% capacity right now, and we're already putting out more energy than 3 star bases combined. If we need to, we can go much higher. Elena looked at the 7 massive ships floating helplessly in space. Each one carried thousands of crew members. Each one represented decades of Imperial engineering and countless resources. And each one was about to be saved by a ship that the Empire had dismissed as primitive human technology. Tony, she said calmly, extend our protective field around the entire fleet. Let's bring them home. As the Defiance's energy field expanded to envelope all 7 Imperial dreadnoughts, Elena realized that everything was about to change. In a few minutes, word would spread across the galaxy. Humans weren't the weak newcomers everyone thought. They had teeth, and today they were finally ready to show them. Admiral Zixara had been fighting wars for over 200 years. She'd seen laser battles that lit up entire solar systems, watched planets explode, and commanded fleets with enough firepower to destroy civilizations. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until today, the human ship that had just appeared near her disabled fleet was tiny. From her position on the bridge of the Imperial flagship Dominion, it looked like a toy compared to her massive dreadnoughts. Her ships were each over 5 miles long, bristling with weapons and armor thick enough to stop asteroid impacts. The human vessel was maybe a tenth of that size. Lieutenant Krell, she called to her communications officer, scan that human ship. What kind of weapons are they carrying? Krell, a young officer with green scales and large yellow eyes, bent over his console. After a few moments, he looked up with confusion written all over his face. Admiral, the scans are ... strange. They're showing minimal weapons, but there's something else. Energy readings that don't make sense. Zixara frowned. She'd dealt with humans before during diplomatic meetings. Nice enough people, but their technology was laughably primitive. They still used old-fashioned rockets to get around their own solar system. Their biggest warships were barely capable of faster-than-light travel. What do you mean the readings don't make sense? She asked. Ma'am, according to our instruments, that little ship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined. But that's impossible. It has to be a sensor malfunction. Zixthara looked out at the human ship through the main viewing screen. It was just sitting there peacefully, like a small bird that had wandered into a pack of sleeping wolves. The idea that such a tiny vessel could be dangerous was ridiculous. "This is Admiral Zixthara of the Imperial Fifth Fleet," she broadcast. "Human vessel, while we appreciate your courage in coming here, this situation is beyond your capabilities. Coalition reinforcements could arrive at any moment. You should retreat to safety immediately." The response came back in a calm, confident voice that caught her off guard. "Admiral, this is Commander Elena Vasquez. We're not here to retreat. We're here to get you home safely." Zixthara almost laughed. The young human commander sounded so sure of herself. It reminded the Admiral of her own early days in the Imperial Navy, when she thought enthusiasm could overcome any obstacle. She decided to be gentle with the human. "Commander Vasquez, I respect your bravery, but look around you. 7 Imperial dreadnoughts, each with a crew of over 50,000. Our ships have been disabled by Coalition forces using some kind of new weapon that drained our power systems. Even if your ship could help, how would you possibly move vessels of this size?" "Admiral," came Elena's voice again, "has anyone ever told you that humans specialize in doing impossible things?" Before Zixthara could respond, something extraordinary began to happen. The space around the human ship started to shimmer like heat waves rising from a desert. Her sensor officer suddenly shouted from his station, "Admiral, energy buildup on the human vessel. Power levels are... This can't be right." "What are you seeing?" Zixthara demanded. "Ma'am, they're generating enough energy to power our entire home world for a year. And it's still climbing." Zixthara stared at the small ship in disbelief. The shimmering around it was getting brighter, and now she could see waves of energy spreading out from the vessel like ripples in a pond. But these weren't ordinary energy waves. They were doing something to space itself, bending and twisting it in ways that hurt to look at. "How is this possible?" She whispered Dot on the human ship. Elena was watching her screens with satisfaction. Dr. Chen had done his work well. The quantum field manipulators were working perfectly, creating a bubble of altered space-time around the Defiance. "Tony," she called to her communications officer, "are you getting good readings on the Imperial ships?" "Yes, Commander. All 7 vessels are showing critical damage to their main power systems, but life support is holding. Looks like they have maybe 6 hours of air left." Elena nodded. "I was cutting it close, but they had plenty of time if everything went according to plan." "Dr. Chun, how are our power levels?" Xion's voice came through the intercom from the engine room. "Commander, we're barely breaking a sweat down here. The quantum fold generators are running at about 8% capacity. We could do this rescue mission 50 times over without straining our systems." Elena smiled. 8%. The Empire had no idea what they were dealing with. "All right, people," she announced to her crew. "Let's show the galaxy what humans can really do. Extend the protective field to encompass the entire Imperial fleet." On the Dominion, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Zixthara's tactical officer, a veteran named Commander Vex, was staring at his instruments in shock. "Admiral, the human ship's energy field is expanding. It's surrounding our entire fleet." Zixthara watched in amazement as a bubble of shimmering energy grew, from the human vessel stretching out to encompass all 7 of her massive dreadnoughts. The field looked fragile, like soap bubbles, but her instruments were telling a different story. "Power readings are off the charts," Krell reported. "Admiral, that energy field is strong enough to protect us from a supernova explosion. How are they doing this with such a small ship?" Before Zixthara could answer, the human commander's voice came over the communication system again. "Admiral, we're going to start moving your fleet now. The journey back to Imperial space will take about 2 hours. We recommend you have your medical teams check on any injured crew members. This is going to be a smooth ride." "Wait," Zixthara said quickly. "Commander Vasquez, even with some kind of protective field, you can't possibly move 7 ships this size. Each of my dreadnoughts' mass is more than a small moon." "Admiral," Elena replied, and Zixthara could hear the smile in her voice. You're about to learn something important about humans. We don't really care about what's supposed to be impossible. The human ship began to move, and the impossible became reality. All 7 Imperial dreadnoughts, each weighing billions of tons, began to follow along like children being led by their mother. The energy field surrounding them was so perfectly controlled that people inside the ships couldn't even feel the movement. Zixthara's engineering officer, a brilliant scientist named Dr. Quinn, ran onto the bridge with his portable scanner in his hand. "Admiral, you need to see this. The humans aren't just moving us, they're moving space itself. They've created some kind of bubble where normal physics don't apply. It's like they've built a pocket universe around our entire fleet." Zixthara sat down heavily in her command chair. In all her years of military service, she'd never seen anything like this. The Empire's best scientists had been working for centuries to develop better space drives. Their fastest ships could travel at maybe 50 times the speed of light. The humans were currently moving her entire fleet at over 1,000 times light speed, and their little ship didn't even seem to be working hard. "This changes everything," she said quietly. Lieutenant Krell looked up from his station. "Admiral, should we report this to Imperial Command?" Zixthara thought about that question. How could she possibly explain what she was seeing? Who would believe that a species the Empire considered primitive could display technology this advanced? "Yes," she said finally. "Send a full report. Include all sensor data. Command needs to know that we've been very, very wrong about humans." As the small human ship towed 7 Imperial dreadnoughts across the galaxy at impossible speeds, Zixthara realized that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. The question was, did anyone else know it yet? Dr. Chun had always been the kind of person who took things apart just to see how they worked. As a kid growing up in New Singapore, he'd driven his parents crazy by dismantling every electronic device in their house. Now, standing in the engine room of the UES Defiance, he was about to show the galaxy that some humans never grow out of that habit. "Commander Vasquez," he spoke into his headset, "we're ready to demonstrate full power capabilities. The quantum fold generators are humming like a happy cat." Elena's voice crackled back through the speaker. "Doctor, remember we have 7 Imperial ships watching every move we make. Let's give them something they'll never forget." Chun smiled as he looked at his creation. The quantum fold drive didn't look like much, just a series of crystalline structures arranged in a pattern that had taken him 8 years to perfect. But these crystals could do something that no other technology in the galaxy could do. They could convince space itself to bend to their will. The Empire scientists thought they understood physics. They had their fancy equations and their centuries of research. What they didn't understand was that sometimes the best discoveries come from people who are too stubborn to accept that something is impossible. On the bridge of the Imperial flagship Dominion, Admiral Zixthara was trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Her best science officer, Dr. Quinn, was running around with his instruments like a child in a candy store. "Admiral, this is incredible," Dr. Quinn shouted, his 4 eyes wide with excitement. "The humans have somehow created a stable quantum field that extends for hundreds of kilometers. Our most advanced laboratories can barely maintain such a field for a few seconds in a space the size of a closet." Zixthara looked at the readings on her main screen. Numbers that should have been impossible was scrolling past faster than she could read them. Energy output levels that exceeded anything in Imperial records. Field strength measurements that broke their sensors. "Dr. Quinn," she said slowly, "in your professional opinion, how far ahead of us is this technology?" The science officer paused, his excited scanning, and looked at her with a serious expression. "Admiral, based on what I'm seeing, I'd estimate that human technology is at least 200 years ahead of ours. Maybe more, 200 years. Zixthara felt a chill run down her spine. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years based on their technological superiority. They had the biggest ships, the most powerful weapons, the fastest engines. Every other species looked up to them as the masters of science and Engineering, and now a species they'd dismissed as primitive was making their best technology look like Stone Age tools. Lieutenant Krell, she called to her communications officer, are you recording all of this? Yes, Admiral. Full sensor logs, video records, energy readings, everything. Imperial Command will have complete documentation. Zixthara nodded. Good. Because nobody was going to believe this without proof. Back on the Defiance, Elena was watching the Imperial ships through her viewscreen with satisfaction. The massive dreadnoughts were following along behind her tiny vessel like baby ducklings following their mother. It would have been funny if the implications weren't so serious. Tony, she said to her communications officer, what's our current speed? Tony checked his instruments. We're cruising at about 1,500 times light speed, Commander. At this rate, we'll have the Imperial fleet back to their territory in just under 2 hours. 1,500 times light speed. Elena remembered her academy training when instructors taught that nothing could go faster than light, except in very short bursts using the most advanced Imperial technology. The Empire's best ships could maintain maybe 50 times light speed for extended periods. The Defiance was currently going 30 times faster than that, while towing 7 massive ships, and Dr. Chun had told her they weren't even trying hard. Dr. Chun? Elena called into her headset. What's our actual power output right now? Commander, we're running at about 12% capacity. If we needed to, we could go much faster, but I figure there's no point in showing off more than we have. Tio, Elena almost laughed. 12%. They were performing miracles that would rewrite galactic history, and they were barely breaking a sweat on the Dominion. Dr. Quinn was having the scientific discovery of several lifetimes. His instruments were detecting technologies that shouldn't exist, energy patterns that defied explanation, and field manipulations that his textbooks said were impossible. Admiral, he said, his voice shaking with excitement, I need to contact the Imperial Science Academy immediately. They need to know about this. Calm down, Doctor, Zixthara replied. What exactly have you discovered? Dr. Quinn pulled up a holographic display showing the energy patterns surrounding their fleet. Admiral, the humans have somehow learned to manipulate quantum fields at a macro level. They're essentially rewriting the laws of physics in the space around us. Our ships aren't just being towed, we're existing in a bubble where different physical laws apply. Admiral Zixthara stared at the display. As a military officer, she understood weapons and tactics. Science was Dr. Quinn's department. But even she could see that what the humans were doing was beyond anything the Empire had ever achieved. How long would it take our best scientists to develop something like this? She asked. Admiral, honestly, I'm not sure we could ever develop this technology. The level of understanding of quantum mechanics required it's like they've discovered an entirely new branch of physics that we don't even know exists. The Admiral felt something she hadn't experienced in over a century of military service, complete helplessness. Not the helplessness of being outgunned or outnumbered, she'd dealt with that many times. This was the helplessness of realizing that everything she thought she knew about the galaxy was wrong. Lieutenant Krell, open a channel to the human ship. Channel. Open, Admiral. Commander Vasquez, this is Admiral Zixthara. I need to ask you something directly. How long has humanity possessed this level of technology? Elena's voice came back clear and confident. Admiral, we've been working on various projects for about 10 years now. But we've learned that it's better to keep quiet about our capabilities until we need to use them. 10 years. 10 years while the Empire had continued to treat humans like children who barely understood basic space travel. 10 years while Imperial officials had dismissed human engineering as primitive and worthless. Dr. Quinn was practically bouncing with excitement. Admiral, do you realize what this means? If the humans have been advancing this rapidly in secret, they might have technologies we can't even imagine. Their materials science, their energy systems, their computing power, everything could be centuries ahead of ours. Zixthara thought about the implications. The Empire's power had always been based on being the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Other species followed Imperial leadership because they believed the Empire knew best, had the best technology, could provide the best protection. What happened when word got out that a species everyone considered primitive had technology that made the Empire look like beginners? Commander Vasquez, she broadcast to the human ship, when we reach Imperial space, there will be questions, many questions. My government will want to understand how this is possible. Admiral, Elena replied, I'm sure they will. And I'm sure humanity will be happy to discuss the future with the Empire. But that's a conversation for diplomats and politicians. Right now, my job is just to get you and your people home safely. As the small human ship continued to tow the massive Imperial fleet across the galaxy at impossible speeds, Admiral Zixthara realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways that nobody could predict. The species that everyone had underestimated was about to become the most important civilization in known space, and she had a front-row seat to watch it happen. High Admiral Corvin had ruled the Galactic Empire for 67 years. He'd conquered 17 star systems, crushed 12 rebellions, and built the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. Nothing had ever made him lose sleep until the report from Admiral Zixthara arrived. Sitting in his massive office on Nexus Prime, the Empire's capital world, Corvin read the report for the fourth time. Each time he hoped he'd misunderstood something. Each time the impossible facts remained the same. A single human ship, smaller than an Imperial patrol vessel, had rescued an entire battle fleet. Not only rescued them, but towed all 7 massive dreadnoughts across half the galaxy at speeds that broke every known record. The energy readings alone were enough to power their capital city for a decade. This has to be a mistake, he muttered to himself, but the sensor data didn't lie. The video recordings were clear, and Admiral Zixthara was one of his most trusted officers. If she said it happened, it happened. Corvin pressed a button on his desk. Get me the emergency council, full assembly, now. Within an hour, the most powerful beings in the galaxy were sitting around Corvin's conference table. General Thane, commander of all Imperial ground forces, Admiral Quinn, head of the Naval Academy, Dr. Vega, the Empire's chief scientist, Intelligence Director Isara, whose spies reached into every corner of known space, and they were all staring at the same impossible report. Ladies and gentlemen, Corvin began, we have a problem, a very big problem. He activated the holographic display in the center of the table. The recording from Admiral Zixthara's ship began to play. Everyone watched in stunned silence as the tiny human vessel performed miracles that their best scientists said were impossible. General Thane was the first to speak. This has to be some kind of trick. Humans can barely manage interplanetary travel. Last month, one of their supply ships broke down trying to reach their own moon. I thought the same thing, Corvin replied. But look at these energy readings. Our sensors don't lie, General. That little ship was putting out more power than 3 star bases combined. Dr. Vega, a brilliant scientist with pale blue skin and silver hair, was studying the data with growing alarm. Hi, Admiral. If these readings are accurate, then human technology is far beyond anything we've ever developed. The quantum field manipulation alone represents advances we thought were centuries away. Intelligence Director Isara had been quiet during the discussion, but now she cleared her throat. Hi, Admiral. I'm afraid I have more disturbing news. This rescue mission wasn't the first sign that we've underestimated humanity. Everyone turned to look at her. Isara was known for her calm demeanor, but today she looked worried. For the past 6 months, my agents have been reporting strange activities in human space. New construction projects that don't match any known human technology. Energy signatures from their colonies that our experts can't explain. Ships entering and leaving their territory that don't appear on any of our databases. Corvin felt a cold knot forming in his stomach. Why wasn't I informed of this earlier? Sir, we assumed it was primitive human experimentation. Nothing that could possibly threaten Imperial interests. We were wrong. Dr. Vigo was still studying the sensor data from the rescue mission. Director Isara, do we have any intelligence on how the humans developed this technology? Very little, Doctor. Our agents report that humans have been remarkably secretive about their research programs. What we do know is that they've been working on what they call quantum physics for several decades. We dismissed it as theoretical. Science with no practical applications. Admiral Quinn, who had been silent until now, finally spoke up. "Hi, Admiral. Do we know how many ships like this the humans possess?" That was the question Corvin had been dreading. "We don't know. Our intelligence suggests this was their newest vessel, but if they can build one, they can probably build more." The room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. For over 1,000 years, the Empire had maintained control of the galaxy through technological superiority. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their defenses stronger. Other species followed Imperial leadership because they believed the Empire was simply better at everything. Now they discovered that a species they considered primitive had technology that made their best achievements look like children's toys. General Thane was the first to voice what everyone was thinking. "Hi, Admiral. If word of this gets out, it could destabilize the entire Empire. Dozens of species have been waiting for any sign of Imperial weakness. If they learn that humans have superior technology, there could be rebellions across the galaxy," Admiral Quinn finished. "Species that have been under Imperial rule for centuries might decide they don't need our protection anymore." Corvin stood up and walked to the massive window that looked out over the Imperial capital. Below him, millions of beings from hundreds of different worlds went about their daily lives, secure in the knowledge that the Empire protected them and provided for them. How many of those beings would remain loyal if they knew the truth? "Dr. Vega," he said without turning around, "in your professional opinion, how long would it take us to develop technology comparable to what the humans displayed?" The scientist was quiet for a long moment. "Hi, Admiral, honestly, I'm not sure we could ever match what they've achieved. The level of understanding required it's like they've discovered entirely new laws of physics that we don't even know exist." "Decades?" Corvan asked hopefully. "Centuries, sir, maybe longer. And that's assuming we could even figure out the basic principles they're using." "Intelligence?" Director Isara pulled up another holographic display. "Hi, Admiral. I've prepared a full analysis of what this means for Imperial security. The summary is not encouraging." The display showed a map of the galaxy with Imperial territory marked in red. Human space was a tiny blue dot near the edge of the map. It looked insignificant compared to the vast red expanse of the Empire. "6 months ago, we would have said that humanity poses zero threat to Imperial interests," Isara explained. "Today, we have to consider the possibility that a single human ship could defeat our entire battle fleet." General Thane leaned forward in his chair. "That's impossible. One ship against thousands? General, that one ship towed 7 of our most powerful dreadnoughts across the galaxy like they were toys. If they can do that, what else might they be capable of?" Dr. Vigo was nodding in agreement. "The energy output we witnessed could be weaponized. A ship capable of generating that much power could probably destroy a planet with ease." Corvin returned to his seat at the head of the table. In 67 years of leadership, he'd never faced a crisis like this. Military threats he could handle. Political challenges he could manage. But how do you deal with the discovery that everything you thought you knew about the galaxy was wrong? "What do you recommend?" he asked his advisors. Intelligence Director Isara spoke first. "We need to establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity immediately. We can't afford to treat them as a minor species anymore." "Agreed," said Admiral Quinn. "We should also consider offering them partnership status within the Empire. Give them incentives to share their technology rather than keeping it secret." Dr. Vega had a different suggestion. "Hi, Admiral, we need to completely restructure our research programs. If humans can make these advances, maybe other species have capabilities we've overlooked as well." General Thane was more direct. "We need to know how many ships like this the humans have, and we need to know fast. This could be a single prototype, or they could have an entire fleet of them." Corvin listened to all the suggestions, then made his decision. We're going to do all of those things. Isara, I want you to establish a direct communication channel with Earth's government. Quinn, prepare recommendations for offering humanity full partnership status. Vega, I want a complete review of our technology assessment protocols. And Thane, I want our best strategists to develop new defense plans that take human capabilities into account. He paused and looked around the table at his most trusted advisors. And I want all of this done quietly. If word leaks out before, we're ready. We could have rebellions on 100 worlds by next month. As the meeting broke up and his advisors hurried off to their tasks, High Admiral Corvan remained alone in his office. For the first time in decades, he felt old and uncertain. The galaxy was about to change in ways nobody could predict. The only question was whether the Empire would adapt fast enough to survive. Elena Vasquez never thought she'd be standing in the most important room in the galaxy, but here she was. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was massive, big enough to hold representatives from over 300 different worlds. The ceiling stretched so high it had its own weather system, and the walls were covered with symbols representing every species in the known galaxy. 6 months ago, she'd been just another ship commander following orders and asking too many questions. Today, she was Earth's official ambassador to the Galactic Council, and every single being in this enormous room was hanging on her words. God, it had been a wild 6 months after the rescue mission. Everything changed almost overnight. High Admiral Corvan himself had contacted Earth's government within days, requesting formal diplomatic meetings. The Empire, which had barely acknowledged humanity's existence for 30 years, suddenly wanted to be best friends, but it wasn't just the Empire. Word had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. The story of a tiny human ship rescuing 7 Imperial dreadnoughts had become legend. Every species, from the peaceful traders of the Andromeda sector to the warrior clans of the Outer Rim, wanted to know more about these humans who had apparently been hiding impossible technology. Elena adjusted the simple blue uniform that marked her as Earth's representative. She'd insisted on wearing something from home rather than the fancy diplomatic robes the Empire had offered. If she was going to represent humanity, she was going to do it as herself. Ambassador Vasquez, came a familiar voice from behind her. She turned to see Admiral Zixara approaching, wearing the formal dress uniform of the Imperial Navy. The alien woman had become an unlikely friend over the past few months. Admiral, Elena smiled, I wasn't sure you'd be here today. Are you? Kidding? I wouldn't miss this for anything. Today, the galaxy officially admits that everything we thought we knew was wrong. Elena looked out over the assembly hall as representatives from dozens of worlds took their seats. She could see the excitement and nervousness on faces that belonged to species she'd only read about in textbooks. Everyone knew today would be different. Dr. Chun had arrived on Nexus Prime 3 days earlier as part of Earth's delegation. The quiet scientist who had revolutionized space travel was now the most famous person in the galaxy. Every government wanted to meet the man who had made the impossible possible. Elena, Chun said as he joined her and Admiral Zixthora, are you ready for this? As ready as anyone can be for rewriting galactic history, she replied. The ceremony began with High Admiral Corvan himself taking the podium. The leader of the Empire looked older than Elena remembered from their video conferences. The stress of the past 6 months had clearly taken its toll. Fellow beings of the galaxy, Corvan began, his voice echoing through the massive hall, today we gather to acknowledge a truth that has become undeniable. The species we have known as humanity has demonstrated technological capabilities that exceed our understanding and challenge our assumptions about the nature of progress itself. Elena watched as representatives from hundreds of worlds listened intently. Some looked excited, others worried, many simply curious. The Zephyrian delegation was taking detailed notes. The crystalline beings from Sigma Draconis were glowing, brighter than usual, which Elena had learned meant they were interested. For too long, Corvan continued, we have operated under the assumption that technological advancement follows predictable patterns. We believed that bigger civilizations with longer histories would naturally possess superior capabilities. The events of 6 months ago proved us wrong. Elena thought back to that day when she'd made the decision to rescue the Imperial fleet. At the time, she'd just been trying to save lives. She had no idea she was about to change the entire galaxy. Therefore, Corvin announced, by unanimous vote of the Imperial Council, we are pleased to offer humanity full partnership status within the Galactic Empire with all the rights and privileges that entails. The hall erupted in discussion. Partnership status was something that usually took centuries to achieve. Species had to prove themselves through decades of cooperation and gradual technological development. Humanity was being offered what most civilizations spent generations working toward. Elena stepped up to the podium. The hall gradually fell, silent as hundreds of alien eyes focused on her. "Thank you, High Admiral Corvin," she began. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I'm honored by this offer. But before we discuss partnerships, I think it's important for everyone to understand something about humanity." She paused, looking out over the assembled representatives. These beings had spent months trying to figure out how humans had developed such advanced technology so quickly. The truth was simpler than they realized. We didn't set out to become the most advanced species in the galaxy, Elena continued. We just refused to accept that something was impossible. When our scientists said faster-than-light travel was limited by certain physical laws, Dr. Chin asked, what if those laws are incomplete? When our engineers said we couldn't generate enough power for large-scale field manipulation, our research teams asked, what if we're thinking about power wrong? She could see understanding dawning on some faces in the audience. The technology that rescued Admiral Zixthara's fleet didn't come from some secret breakthrough or ancient discovery. It came from humans who were too curious to accept limitations and too stubborn to give up when things seemed impossible. Dr. Chin joined her at the podium. The shy scientist who normally avoided public speaking had something he wanted to say. "Friends," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. "The quantum fold drive isn't magic. It's just physics that we approach from a different angle. For 8 years, my team asked questions that everyone said were pointless. We conducted experiments that couldn't possibly work. We failed thousands of times before we succeeded. Once," Elena smiled as she watched the audience. Many of the representatives were nodding in understanding. "The point is," Elena continued, "humanity isn't special because we're smarter or more advanced than anyone else. We're just willing to try things that seem impossible. And we've learned that the galaxy is full of opportunities for species who are willing to take that approach." Admiral Zixthara had told Elena that dozens of species had approached the Empire in recent months, offering to share research projects and collaborate on new technologies. The revelation of human capabilities had inspired a galaxy-wide renaissance of scientific curiosity. "Which brings me to our response to the Empire's generous offer," Elena said. "We're honored to accept partnership status, but we'd like to propose something more." The hall fell completely silent. Even High Admiral Corvin looked surprised. "We propose the creation of a new organization, the Galactic Research Cooperative. Not a government or a military alliance, but a scientific partnership between any species, willing to share knowledge and work together on advancing our understanding of the universe." Elena gestured toward Dr. Chun. "Dr. Chin's quantum fold technology will be freely shared with any species that joins the cooperative. In return, we hope to learn from the expertise and perspectives that each of your civilizations can offer." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Representatives throughout the hall began talking excitedly with their colleagues. The implications were staggering. Instead of hoarding advanced technology, humanity was offering to share it with anyone willing to collaborate. Over the following hours, Elena watched as species after species voted to join the new cooperative. The Zephyrians offered their expertise in biological engineering. The crystalline beings from Sigma Draconis contributed their knowledge of energy-based life forms. Even the warrior clans of the Outer Rim had valuable insights into materials science under extreme conditions. By the end of the day, over 200 species had joined the Galactic Research Cooperative. The Empire's offer of partnership had become something much bigger, a galaxy-wide commitment to working together rather than competing against each other. 6 months later, Elena stood on the observation deck of the new research station orbiting Nexus Prime. Through the massive windows, she could see ships from dozens of different worlds docked at the station. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian biologists. Imperial scientists collaborated with Outer Rim METLL, URGISTS. Admiral Zixtara joined her at the window. "Do you ever regret it?" the Admiral asked. "Your species could have used that technology to dominate the galaxy. Instead, you gave it away." Elena watched a mixed crew of humans and aliens loading equipment onto a research vessel. "Admiral, humans learned something important in our early space program. The greatest achievements happen when people work together towards something bigger than themselves. We never wanted to dominate the galaxy, we just wanted to be part of it." As she spoke, a message came through the station's communication system. Another breakthrough had been achieved in the cooperative's labs, a new method of faster-than-light communication that would allow instant contact across the entire galaxy. Elena smiled. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had imagined, and humanity had helped make it happen. Not through conquest or